What's up everyone, Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have yet another collection update. This is also stuff that I kind of purchased over Christmas time with gift cards and such. Definitely got a lot of reissues in this one. I was definitely looking to patch some holes in the collection, and just some random odds and ends, stuff that I missed from last year, and well, there's a lot of it, so let's just get right into it. Living Sacrifice. Their self-titled debut from 1991. Now this is a reissue on Nordic Mission Records from last year. I have been actually meaning to get some of the earlier Living Sacrifice stuff because it's vastly different than, well, a lot of the stuff they were known for in their later career. They kind of shifted more over to, let's say, metalcore, kind of groove metal. This is fucking death thrash, and holy shit, this is some hyper aggressive, fast, riffy shit. Very similar to like Sepultura, circa, I'd say Beneath the Remains, Vader, Solstice, and a definite fuck ton of Slayer influence. I know these dudes are Christian metal, but they definitely listen to Slayer. They just probably didn't tell their parents about it. It's like, oh no, we're like Bible study or something. We didn't listen to Slayer, we promise. And it shows. Second Death, listen to that song, the opening that it sounds like Slayer. This is the original thrashing of the Christ, I guess. Now the only issue I have with this are the vocals. The vocals are not great. This is before Bruce Fitzhugh took over on vocals, and this is back when Darren Johnson was the vocalist, and he had a very flat delivery. It really did not kind of match the pure force of the music, which sucks because honestly, with better vocals, I think this would probably be talked about as more of a death thrash classic overall, but the vocals definitely kind of hampered a bit. Everything musically on here, I absolutely love. The riffs are tight, the drumming's hyper aggressive, just nasty. But one thing, again, is kind of off-putting, but I still recommend checking this out. I think this is an absolutely badass album. Musically, again, vocals, not so much, but holy shit, the tunes on here are fucking ripping. Check it out. Swallow the Sun Moonflowers. It's the 8th album from this Finnish death doom act, pretty fucking well known. I have been meaning to pick this one up for a while, and it sucks because when I went to the record store, they actually had the media book version. I'd already ordered this. Should have been more patient, but it doesn't matter because I got it, and I really enjoy this. I really liked the last one, and it was appropriately a super sad album due to the loss of the frontman's wife, I believe, to cancer. I believe she was his wife or a band member's wife. I know that it was pretty much focused on the pain of loss throughout that album, and it was an exceptionally just sad listen, and for good reason. This, still sad because sad's kind of what Swallow the Sun does, but this one brings back some aggression. The shifts between the heavier parts and the cleaner parts are fucking immense, and the vocals are flat out demonic on this when they need to be. This has a very Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride sort of feel. It kind of bounces back and forth between depressive and oppressive, because when it gets heavy, like, it gets unbelievably heavy. Especially Keep Your Heart Safe from Me. That is an exceptionally aggressive song. It's very riffy, and again, it wasn't something that was big on the last album. This one kind of brings the heaviness to the forefront again, and I really dug that about this album. But of course, you get a lot of the dreary sort of gothic atmosphere. All Hallows Grieve, good play on words there. There's some very haunting female vocals that go through there, and This House Has No Home, aggressive, but it's also kind of blackened in sections. There's some blast beats, some tremolo riffing that is very kind of cold and just dark sounding. Excellent album. I really wish I'd actually reviewed this one when it came out, but we were probably bogged down with reviewing a bunch of other stuff, so this one kind of fell by the wayside. So yeah, definitely missed a good one from last year, but I'm here to tell you now, check it out if you already haven't, and if you have, well, you probably know what I'm talking about because it's really fucking good. So check it out. All right, got a pair here from Satan. Not the actual Satan, but the band Satan, which is actually just as cool. We have Atom by Atom and Cruel Magic. Cruel Magic being their most recent one, came out on Metal Blade. This is actually their debut on Metal Blade, came out in 2018. And then this one came out in 2015, I believe, on Listenable Records. These guys, in case you don't know, are an old school heavy metal act, part of the whole new wave of British heavy metal way back. Their debut album, Court in the Act, is an absolute underrated gem of a new album. And they reformed like not too long ago. I think I have the album that came out before this, Life Sentence, I believe it is. Really dug that, but these guys kept getting better, and it's remarkable because they're not young guys. In fact, the frontman is almost 70, and he has incredible vocals on here. But the thing that I really like about Satan, and it kind of carries over from Chord in the Act, is the fact that they're pretty heavy and dark. One of my issues with classic heavy metal is sometimes it just doesn't feel very heavy by at least today's standards, or, you know, it feels more like heavy classic rock. Like, you know, it's still really good. I still love the vibe, but these guys like to get dark, and the riffs are really interesting on here. They're not always like the traditional harmonies and straight up just, you know, heavy metal riffs. Like, they throw in some really cool tremolos, some more thrashy rhythms, and I would even say some of the stuff is comparable to Voivod. Now here's the thing, I like both of these. Both of these are absolutely amazing, so I can't really say which one I like more. I mean, possibly Cruel Magic, but this is also really good too. If you like classic heavy metal, I'd say get both, and get Life Sentence, and get Chord in the Act. And maybe check out some of their stuff when they changed their name around, because they did change their name several times, I believe. They were called like Blind Fury at one point. Probably had something to do with the fact that, you know, back in the early 80s, yeah, venues might have been a little bit hesitant about booking a band called Satan, which is kind of fucked up because you barely have to wait a decade before you're booking bands called Cannibal Corpse and Dying Fetus. But, you know, whatever. Either way, both of these are absolutely killer. They both offer up some really cool, unique songs in here, so it's not like kind of just back-to-back the same thing. The title track on here is almost ZZ Top-ish. There's a little bit of southern sort of flair to it. And then the Devil's Infantry on this one has some really cool Middle Eastern melodies. So there's all sorts of interesting stuff on here. But overall, the main thing I really like is this makes classic heavy metal sound nice and dark and sinister. And I love that kind of shit. So yeah, definitely check out Satan. Check out all their albums, honestly, because I really have yet to find a bad one by these guys. So yeah, check them out. All right, got another pair from Trouble. This is the kind of trouble I do not mind getting into. So we have Run to the Light and their self-titled album. Now this came out in 1987, and this was kind of the last one of their more straight up doom metal sort of sound. Lots of like big spacey synths, big, heavy, dark sort of, you know, atmosphere on this one. I really love this album. I mean, it's kind of a tie with the Skull that is possibly my favorite Trouble album. I don't know, like the more I get into these guys, it kind of wavers a bit, because the self-titled one is a flat out banger too. It's just very different. This is a little bit more stoner metal meets their kind of doom metal sound, and maybe just like a little bit more classic rock. It kind of fits Eric Wagner's vocals a little bit better, honestly, because he always kind of had like a little bit of a Robert Plant sort of feel, and being the dark, depressive Robert Plant versus being the let's just fucking shake our asses and boogie Robert Plant, this kind of fits a little bit better. Both of them definitely have like the big Sabbathy grooves. This one, again, darker in tone. It's a little bit more work with the synths. You know, it just kind of feels different. It's more oppressive and kind of bleak. This one kind of just wants to party a little bit. I mean, it definitely gets heavy, especially the breakdown on END, and of course, RIP. I mean, we're not all acronyms here. There's other really killer songs, but those two definitely stand out. Now, the follow-up to this one, Manic Frustration, I also own. I think that was a push further in this direction. They got the balance right here. It's still doomy when it needs to be, but it has a little bit of that stoner metal sort of warmth and a big classic rock vibe. So all that mixed together really makes for a flat-out killer album. Either way, you can't go wrong with getting either one of these, because they're both excellent. They're just both kind of different. Those different phases of their career. I still have yet to get Green Plastic Head, which I've heard is kind of a mixed bag, and I still don't have the one with Kyle Thomas. But eventually I'm going to get them, because I kind of want to complete the cycle, because I have everything else, and again, Trouble fucking rules. This band is flat out awesome. So yeah, pretty well-known band, but if you haven't heard them and you're just getting into doom metal, this is not a bad place to start, because these guys put out excellent stuff. Check out their first two albums as well. Definitely check out this one, and I'd say Manic Frustration's pretty good too. Either way, the main thing is definitely check them out. These guys are stone cold classics when it comes down to doom metal, and I would say pretty much essential if you're just getting into doom. Venomous Concept, Politics versus the Erection. Did not say that last word wrong. This is the fourth album from this hardcore / grindcore supergroup featuring Shane Embry, John Cook, and Danny Herrera of Napalm Death, and Kevin Sharp, formerly of Brutal Truth, on vocals. And this is some vicious, nasty, hardcore, grindcore. I don't know, it's labeled more as hardcore punk, but there's still a lot of grind to it. There's still blast beats. The production is kind of similar to modern Napalm Death, at least a little bit. I mean, it's fast, there's loads of D beats, there's still blast beats on here. Does take a couple of breaks for groove, and I would say the song Promise kind of shows a little bit of like post-punk in terms of like the dissonant melodies and such, like a little bit of Killing Joke worship. But when you have Kevin Sharp ranting, raving, shrieking, screaming, and growling his guts out, it's hard to say it's not metal in some form. Like, it's definitely more on the grindcore side. I've been listening to these guys for a while. I think I got into them around Poison Apple, and that album was a fuckload of fun. And I've been slowly sort of like picking up all the stuff I was missing, and turns out the only thing I was actually missing was the newest one. I have everything else. And this, once again, another solid album from them. I don't know if it's as good as Poison Apple. I think maybe that one was just a little bit more wild and crazy. Like, this one's definitely very straight ahead. I mean, there's definitely some goofy stuff like Mantis Toboggan, which that has to be an Always Sunny in Philadelphia reference. At least I hope it is, because that shit's hilarious. But overall, this is a solid album. It is high energy. It is in your face at all times. It pulls zero punches because, well, this is Venomous Concept, and I mean, well, cover slightly covered up on this, but you can see it over there, and there's a certain group of people that might actually get pissed off by this, but this band doesn't care, neither do I. It's fucking hilarious, and the music is absolutely awesome. If you love fucking grindcore, hardcore, if you love high energy music that gives no fucks and pulls no punches, check out Venomous Concept. I'd say check out all their albums, but yeah, definitely check this one out too. Concrete Winds, Nerve Butcherer. This is the second album from this Finnish death metal / death grind act. They are actually formed from two of the ex-members of Vorum, which actually disbanded in 2018, and this is their new project, and I pretty much just bought it because I was a big fan of Vorum, and this is very different. This is chaotic, insane death grind. It is spastic as hell. The production is raw and nasty. The drums are hyper aggressive. The guitars are just nuts sounding. Again, just locking on to dissonant melodies, quote unquote. Like, this is a very visceral listen. I actually compared this to like Insect Warfare covering Daughters. Like, the songs are chaotic and structured to be just strange. Especially Dissolvent Baptism has this weird sort of boogie hi-hat stomp, and then it goes into blast beats, and then back to the boogie stomp. I don't really quite get that, but I know this is pretty strange. I probably should have listened to this maybe a little bit before actually purchasing it, but, well, I liked Vorum, and I was kind of curious to see if they were actually continuing on with that sound, and this is definitely not that. This is just scathing, insane, from start to finish. There really are no breaks in this. And I like nuts, like crazy grindcore, but I need like hooks every now and then, and this is definitely kind of missing those. There weren't a lot of like repeated melodies or like distinct riffs that really drew me into these songs, but I did like them because they were chaotic and violent. But I feel like I can get chaotic and violent and hooks out of a lot of other bands. I still want to check out more by this band. I know they have one other album at least, and I have no idea what that sounds like, but I have a feeling it probably sounds a bit like this. But if they did just kind of like reel it in a little bit and throw in a couple of hookier riffs and kind of go like for that almost Terrorizer, Napalm Death sort of sound and kind of mix that in there, I think you'd have some really solid, memorable songs, like something probably along the lines of Noisem, which I'm a big fan of them too. But yeah, this is just kind of okay. Again, I like the intensity of it, but again, it's not very memorable other than being memorable for like, wow, what the fuck was that? That was absolutely insane. I need it to be memorable for, wow, I want to listen to that again because it was insane, but there was some sick fucking riffs in there. Didn't quite get that, but still, I recommend you check it out. Form your own opinions. What I may not like, you guys may absolutely love. So, only way you're going to find out is if you check it out. Epitaph, Seeming Salvation. This is the debut album from this Swedish death metal band. Came out in 1992. This is the 2015 reissue of it. And this is not to be confused with the Florida Epitaph band that I covered a few collection updates ago. This is straight out of Sunlight Studios, Thomas Skogsberg, and, well, a little bit more US death metal, but it's still very Swedish death metal. It kind of like walks the line between a band like Seance, which definitely wanted more of the US sound, and then like Dismember and Entombed, which, well, I mean, HM2 fucking legends right there. This definitely has the HM2 sound. It's a little bit more subdued, and honestly, this is not my favorite mix from Thomas Skogsberg. It's definitely a little bit more raw, and again, that guitar tone, it doesn't quite fill out the sound as well. Now, this is only a 3-piece, and I think they single-tracked a lot of the guitars, which, you know, kind of makes sense for live purposes because that is exactly what you're going to get live. But at least with the way it's mixed, it's kind of missing some of the heft, but the songwriting here is fantastic. Again, it has like a lot of Floridian tropes. There's the Sears crawling harmonies that are very like deathish on here, but you still get all the D beats and fucking like sort of crusty punk backbone to some of the songs too, so definitely a lot of that Stockholm sound. A lot of this really reminds me of early Unleashed, especially with the vocals. And early Unleashed definitely had a bit of a thrashy vibe to them too, so, you know, that kind of fits in there. These guys ended up breaking up like about a year later after this one, and I believe they reformed and put out an album in like 2016, which I haven't heard, but I do want to check out after listening to this one because this is a pretty solid, underrated album here. Like, I don't hear a lot of people talk about it, but then again, there were a lot of bands living in Entombed and Dismember and Grave Shadows. Like, there's a lot of killer fucking Swedish death metal out there. But this has solid riffs, solid songwriting. There's some really clever harmonies on here. Super glad I snagged this. I know someone recommended this to me, and I'm not entirely sure who, but whoever they were 100% right that I would like this, but I'm kind of easy to read. All you need to say was probably Stockholm, HM2, like, gimme. It really is that easy. But either way, if you dig Swedish death metal, strongly recommend checking this out. Konkhra, Sexual Affective Disorder. This is the 1993 debut album from this Danish death metal act. This is the 2020 Hammerheart reissue. I actually heard stuff from this album on Nuclear Blast samplers years ago. I think it was the Death is Just the Beginning series, and I have been meaning to pick this one up in particular just because this album cover is kind of hard to forget. I have no idea what's going on with this dude, but it doesn't look pleasant. Now, these guys had a very interesting style of death metal. It's definitely groovy, but also very thrashy. There's tons of open chugging in here, and with that thick, monstrous tone that they had, I don't blame them. Everything is sort of centered around a lot of staccato riffing, weird bass lines, insane fucking drumming, alternating vocals, and weird samples. Visually intact, as a lot of people talking about kinks and porn, possibly. With an album title like this, I probably should have expected that, but what I got, though, in terms of the music is really fucking awesome. I'd been sleeping on this band for a while, and I can't think of a good reason as to why I have not picked this up yet, but I have it now, and I definitely want to check out more of their stuff. But this is the one that always seemed to come up, and I forget which song it was on the sampler, but it doesn't matter because I have the whole thing now. If I had heard this when it came out, this would be an album that I would literally make anyone I knew listen to just to hear how fucking strange and awesome it was. Because this really would have fit in with all of my listening back then. Like, all the fucking Sepultura, Fear Factory, Pantera, like somehow this would have been like covering all of those bases. Absolutely love this album. I definitely need to get more Konkhra. This is just a strange death metal oddity. I don't know, like it feels like it's kind of normal, but I don't know. It's just weird and I dig it. So if you've never jammed these guys, I strongly recommend checking them out, and I would definitely say start here because this is, well, where they started, but this is also just a fucking nuts album. So yeah, check it out. Cardiac Arrest, Haven for the Insane. This is the third album from this Chicago-based death metal. Again, I don't want to say death grind on this one too. Either way, holy shit, this is really heavy, and Jesus Christ, the production on here is really loud. Like, I like gritty, heavy production, but holy shit, these guitars are fucking just over the fucking top. Like, there's so much sizzle on there and gain that it's almost kind of painful to listen to, but it's something I'm willing to suffer through because I like death metal, and this is just nasty, kind of grindy death metal. Definitely a lot of exhumed, impaled, but like a little bit of like Swedish death metal sort of like mixed in there. It's pretty much all the heavy things just coming at you all at once, and little bit of punk attitude too to sprinkle in there as well, and Jesus, that's a hell of a combo already, right? It does pack some really clever melodies on here, but most of this is about the hyper aggression on here. Twitching at the Noose, though, definitely really catchy. Like, that has some really cool melodies on there. Definitely not melodies for people that like normal music that isn't death metal. I don't really associate with those people. They're kind of weird, right? But definitely melodies that would appeal to people who like death metal and like to hear a melody every now and then. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But I especially love the punky bite of Rage On, Fuck Off, and it pretty much kicks off as appropriately as you can with a 1-2 fuck you, and then bam, into a D beat, and let's get fucking moshing. But yeah, this is a relentless listen from start to finish, and that includes the weird hidden track that is at the end of The Blade That Reaps, which is a cover of Bloodbath by Dog God. I've never heard of that band, but I assume they did a good cover. This also comes with a bonus DVD in this edition. It's 90 minutes of live and interview footage. I haven't got a chance to watch that yet. I just got a chance to listen to this and tell you that, holy shit, it's really loud, but it's also really good. I have some issues with the production, but overall the music I think is fucking tons of fun. So if you love just grindy, D-beat driven death metal that is constantly in your face and loud as fuck, it's this. So yeah, definitely check it out. Sacramentum, Far Away from the Sun. This one's been long overdue. This is the debut album from 1996 from this Swedish melodic black metal, death metal. They say they're black and death metal, but honestly I get way more black metal out of this. Either way, long overdue. I've been listening to this on YouTube for years and just not getting a copy because I get distracted by other shit, which is an all too common occurrence, let's be honest. But I was lucky to be reminded of this because this was reissued last year, and I decided to pounce on it when I saw that it was available, and it's just as amazing as the last time I listened to it. I love how melodic and cold and just atmospheric this is. The harmonies these guys use in the tremolo riffs is just flat out amazing. It captures so much on here. I like the fact that they bring in some nice thrashy sections every now and then, but the main thing I think they incorporate with their overall sound that I like is folk. Like, there's definitely a lot of folk melodies in here, except played by a black metal band. There's a lot of stuff on here that reminds me of melodies you would hear on early In Flames, especially, you know, around like Jester Race and Lunar Strain, like those folky sort of anthemic songs, except these are colder and more Satan-y. Well, Satan's really not like a huge thing in here. This is mostly about like depression and darkness and nighttime and darkness. They got a theme. It's pretty cool. But I wanted to sang this one finally because they are playing at MDF. They are playing this album in its entirety. I believe that is going to be their set, and I definitely want to check it out if I can. Now, I do have the follow-up to this one, The Coming Chaos. That's the one that I've had for a while, but I never got around to getting this one, and honestly, this is probably where I should have started. I like The Coming Chaos. I think it's a pretty decent album, but it's not this. This is definitely a standout, and I can see why so many people absolutely love this album. The only thing that I didn't like on here was the end of The Darkness Falls for me, which they kind of just end it with a big synth melody, and it sucks because the first part of it, where it's just them doing what they do so well with all the black metal wonderfulness, just kind of cuts out in favor of that, and it just doesn't feel like the right way to end this album. I felt like it needed to end much bigger, but still, everything else up to that point, fucking brilliant. So yeah, this is a pretty well-known one. Don't really need to go into it much, but if you are unfamiliar with it, I strongly recommend checking it out. And if you're just getting into black metal, honestly, this wouldn't be a bad album to check out because it is very melodic, but it also captures everything that most people like about black metal. Again, it is pretty much a underground classic to those that do know it, but if you haven't checked it out, I strongly recommend it. Silver Talon, Decadence and Decay. It's the debut album from this Portland-based heavy metal slash, power metal, I guess. I don't want to call it power metal. I think it's too cool for that, but yeah, that's just me. I don't like power metal, but kind of fits. Now, this band has 3 guitarists, and one of them is actually Sebastian Silva from Unto Others, and holy shit, this sounds like Nevermore. Like, this is the kind of power metal, if Nevermore is considered power metal, I think they're, I don't know, I don't want to call them power metal either. but they're awesome. I love Nevermore. I've been a fan for years. I think pretty much since I heard the song Seven Tongues of God, I became a fan. This has that vibe, definitely like Cold Heart and a Dead World sort of vibe. And holy shit, their frontman sounds a lot like World Dane, like to the point at sometimes where it was a little haunting and kind of depressing because he's no longer with us. But dude, this is flat out heavy. Like this gets dark heavy. This gets Nevermore heavy. There are big syncopated chugs, but you also get classic heavy metal fucking rippers like Divine Fury and Kill All Kings. Those two songs in particular, flat out whoop ass. High energy, very thrashy. The closer, Touch the Void, is absolutely fantastic. I love the lead work on here. Again, another cool comparison to Nevermore. I'll be honest, I almost wanted to play Nevermore kind of side by side and really do like a comparison, but I didn't because I wanted to keep listening to this because it's fucking awesome. Now, if memory serves me right, and it occasionally does, this was actually recommended to me by Rick over at the Dreadful Minutes, and well, he was flat out right because he brought up the whole Nevermore comparison and my ears instantly perked up. And yes, he's spot on about this. This is definitely a bit of Nevermore worship, but holy shit, it is really good. I have missed that band since their demise. I love pretty much all their albums, which one day we definitely want to rank that one. But this, I don't know, it kind of gives me that feel again. I want to see this band keep going on because I want to see them have a long killer career like Nevermore as well. So yeah, if you have not checked this out and you love Nevermore and heavy, thrashy, fucking massive riffs, I don't want to say power metal, but that might be what it is. Maybe the more US power metal style, so it's a bit heavier. I don't know. I don't want to call it power metal, but it might be power metal. But either way, check it out because it is flat out badass. And I'm going to eat my words slightly about power metal, at least on this one. So check it out. Bonded into Blackness, the second album from this German thrash metal act that actually features Bernd Kost, ex-Sodom guitarist, and Christos Sitsis. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce your last name, but he is formerly of Suicidal Angels, and this is straight up aggressive thrash metal. Now, it also features the current vocalist for Assassin on vocals, and this kind of sounds like Sodom. Like, it really kind of latches onto the just straightforward thrashy sound. Definitely a lot of Slayer riffs on here, and maybe like a little bit of like modern Exodus too. The production on here I think is exceptionally good. The guitar tone is fucking massive. Like, this is a beefy, thrashy tone. Now, vocally, well, all right, the harsher vocals, like when he's just kind of going for the throat and doing like a rapid fire thrash delivery, pretty solid. But occasionally they try to get a little bit more tuneful with the more epic like melodies that are in the choruses, and that's a little hit or miss for me. Sometimes they're pretty decent. Other times you kind of just wish they had skipped the epic chorus altogether and just gone for something even more aggressive than the verses. When you have like a big epic chorus and you don't necessarily have the vocals to match them, it kind of takes the power and the epicness out of the chorus. But again, when they're going full tilt boogie in the thrash side and just being aggressive and fast, pretty solid. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of killer thrash out there, and this is good, but it doesn't really stand out much. In fact, it sounds a lot like Sodom, which, honestly, I mean, I could just go listen to Sodom. But again, it's still good. It's just maybe a tad generic. Still, I recommend checking it out, form your own opinions. Again, if you like thrash metal, there's definitely stuff you're going to find on here that you like. It's just, you might also find those on other albums you already own or have listened to. Still, you won't know until you listen to it, so check it out. Slog Graves. It's the debut album from this LA-based blackened death doom act. This is a two-man band, and when I looked at the metal archives, holy shit, the drummer is almost in as many bands as Roger Johansson. Like, there might be like 30 bands that dude's in. This is some nasty, dreary, murky blackened death doom. Actually, a lot of this reminds me of early Hooded Menace. It's slow, plodding. There's really just kind of creepy, dissonant lead melodies on top. But occasionally you do get some flat out more death metal stylings. The song Gluttonous especially is more up-tempo. The leads are a little bit shreddier and squawkier, and You do get some Death Doom breaks in there, but for the most part, it's very aggressive. But most of this is just sort of crawling through the murk and mud. I found a lot of this kind of comparable to Worm, maybe minus the more virtuoso-like leads, but the atmosphere, the overall feel, the vibe of this, very comparable. The production also kind of similar, though I think this is a little bit more raw and more underproduced. I think the drums are really out front because that snare fucking comes through loud as fuck. Maybe a little too loud occasionally. The guitars are just thick and they sound like they're dripping with something, like they're just gross. But honestly, that kind of works because, yeah, this album's gross. Now, one of the cool things about this is it came out on Morbid and Miserable Records, which is based here out of Toledo, Ohio. So I feel glad that I get to prop up my town a little bit because not much really goes on here, but it is really cool to see an upstart label, and they have signed some really cool stuff, this included. So if you love just grimy Death Doom, holy shit, check this out. It is just flat out disgusting. Mouth of the Architect, The Ties That Bind. This is the second album from this Dayton, Ohio-based post-metal act. Now, this is actually the first I'd ever heard of them, was a song off of this album. In fact, it was the opening track, Baobab? I don't even know how to say that word. Anyway, it was on a sampler from forever ago, and I ended up really enjoying it, and then I ended up getting a bunch of their other stuff and forgetting to get this one. Well, I finally decided to get this one when I did all my Christmas shopping, and this might be the best one I've picked up, because I have everything now except for their first album and their last album. This is absolutely incredible. This is very sludgy post-metal, and you will get that right away. The guitar tone is pure sludge doom thickness. And it's kind of interesting because the production in here feels very warm. Like the bass is very fuzzy, the guitars kind of have a little bit of fuzz to them, but you get these big hardcore shouts, kind of like similar to Cult of Luna a little bit, and twisted samples throughout. But man, these guys really know how to lock on to killer melodies. And of course, doing the post-metal thing of constructing and deconstructing the song and building them back up layer by layer, like that's one of my main draws to post-metal, and these guys do it exceptionally well. And of course, one of the other things I love about post-metal is slow building songs. The song Carry On in here builds very softly. It's kind of subdued at first and then builds into a giant, like, megalith of a song. Absolutely love this album. I should have got this years ago, but I have it now, and I'm very happy about it because compared to the other ones, I think this is one of their best. I still haven't listed the first one or the most recent one, but I fucking love this. And with Cult of Luna coming up around the corner next month, I definitely wanted to get some more post-metal to jam, and oh man, fantastic album. If you have not jammed this, I strongly recommend it. It's post-metal fucking glory with a bit of sludgy, doomy fucking nastiness to it. How does that not sound great? Check it out. And finally, we have Dehuman Rain, Destructive Intent. This is their debut EP. This is a German death metal act, and I actually love both their full lengths. I actually did a full-on review for the last one that came out in 2020, and then I picked up their debut full length, and well, both were fucking awesome. These guys play straight up old school death metal, and honestly, very Floridian. There's a lot of stuff in here that reminds me of Deicide, and especially Monstrosity. There might be like a little bit more focus on songwriting than say in Deicide, because Deicide was almost more of a straight ahead attack, but that's why we love Deicide. Either way, it's fiercely 90s. I love the raw production on here. The song Veil of Ignorance is pretty much just a death metal kick in the teeth. That song flat out whoops ass. The only thing on this EP that I didn't like, well, I mean, I didn't think it was terrible, were the invocation interludes, where they just kind of put creepy ambient noise kind of in the background and then had someone chant something in some language, but honestly, it just sounded like Jabba the Hutt just saying stuff. Jabba's not necessarily very scary. Sorry, we love him, but he's not very scary. But yeah, it's a short offering. Most of the songs are like maybe 3 minutes, but they pretty much all fucking whoop ass. And honestly, that's kind of par for the course of this band. If you check out their two full lengths, there's pretty much nothing but killer stuff on there. So if you are a big 90s death metal fan, and there's a good chance you are if you watch this channel, I strongly recommend checking this out. This absolutely whoops ass. And definitely check out their two full lengths as well. Those are both absolutely killer, just longer. That's the only real difference. Well, there's less Java interludes too, thank God. Check this out. Whoops ass. That's pretty much all I got. All right, that knocks out another one of these. I'm still waiting on stuff to arrive for another collection update in the future, so we have a nice little breathing period where I can sit back and listen to some other stuff. Like I do need to sit back and listen to some more Carcass just so I can get my rankings done there. But yeah, as for the channel, bunch of stuff coming up. I hope you guys are enjoying the fact that we threw out some interviews. We definitely want to do more of those in the future. Of course, plenty of reviews coming up. This month is starting to slow down a little bit, but February is going to pick up with a whole bunch of releases. And we want to get some more retro reviews out there. Those might take a little bit more time just because of other stuff coming up, but we definitely want to do some more of those because I kind of miss doing those. So, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you would like to help us out there will be a link down below. We also will have shirts eventually. We are still waiting for confirmation on the designs and such, and they pretty much assured us that it will be here end of January, early February, and we can't wait to show them off, and there will be an announcement for that, and that will coincide with a giveaway because we are on the precipice, once again, of hitting 10,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane still. Like, I still can't get my head around that, and thank you. Thank you all so damn much for getting us here. It's just fucking amazing, and you're a huge part of it. I know I'm gonna keep running out of things to thank you guys specifically for, and it's just gonna be a lot of the same shit, but know that it comes from the heart, and I'm just usually at a loss for words anytime I come to this point in the video. So, once again, thank you all very much, and we will catch you later.